Take a moment and look around. Really look. Our communities are in pain. Our businesses are failing. Our small farms are crumbling. Our neighbors and friends are leaving. We need solutions, and we need them soon.
When I look around, I see that pain. High taxes and burdensome regulations are killing business opportunities, crushing small farms, and driving people out of the state at an unprecedented rate. My name is Thomas Daniel Queter, and I am not a politician. As a disability rights advocate, I have spent every day of my life fighting for myself and others to find solutions to get around a broken system. If you want someone who will fight for you in Albany, vote Tom Queter for State Senate. I'm Thomas Daniel Queter. I approve this message. Check out the campaign at tomfor52.com.
Paid for by Tom for 52.
There you go. Cool. Hey, everybody. This is InspreNation. I'm Robert Murray, coming to you with another weekly rundown with our buddy Thomas Queter up there. And we got Ken Mattis here today. And yeah, how you guys doing? Thomas, welcome. Ken, welcome.
How's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We've had some success here locally recently.
Yeah.
Indeed you have. Congratulations.
A big win.
Yeah, big win for cannabis control, local cannabis control. That sounds bad, right? Control cannabis. What do you want to do? Make it illegal? No, we want to give the people the control. And that's what happened here in Guilford. As everybody's aware, New York State recently legalized recreational cannabis, which allows recreational dispensaries to operate and sell recreational cannabis. That's a state law. That's legal. Towns, though, were given the option of opting out of allowing legal sales points or dispensaries within town limits, which that's fine. That's home rule. That's great. But here's the problem with it. What this has done, legalizing cannabis in New York, is create a new market. A new legal market. And if a town opts out of a market, it's opting out of economic potential. It's opting out of job growth. It's opting out of tax revenue that goes directly to the town. And that's especially true with this cannabis bill that was passed. I believe it's 2% goes directly to the town, and another 1% goes directly to the county. I could be wrong on those numbers, but there's a percentage that goes to the town and a percentage that goes to the county and is kept local. So from the town's perspective, that's revenue. And, our towns are struggling here in upstate New York. It's always good to find positive revenue.
For them to say no to that, it's like they're trying to participate in a lockdown. Like they're choosing to.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to kill the economy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not fair. I mean, your surrounding towns, they legalized it, right? For business.
Yeah, well, it's still legal no matter what. But they opted in to allowing cannabis dispensaries. So all of the towns around us, or most of them, are opting in, and we were opting out. So we do have the choice of opting in later. But here's the problem with that: if we're surrounded by towns who opt in first, they're going to be the first ones to market. Anybody looking to put in a dispensary is going to put them in there. And if you come in a year later and try to opt in, well, your businesses are buying the 8 ball to be in our town. There's time required for filing for the permits. There's time required for finding property to hold your business in. There's time required for finding the proper staff and setting everything up. And of course, there's time required to getting through the permitting phase. And all of that is important. That's your start time. It's not when you open the doors of the business. It's when your investor begins investing time and money into opening that business. And that's really what they failed to realize.
Alex is the guy that he I won that. It was in the competition. Well, it kind of was a competition. We were doing comments. We were seeing who can do the most comments during a live show, and I won 3rd place. So he put me on the feature page of the social live shows. This is Alex. Hey, Alex. Thank you, buddy. Thanks for coming.
How you doing, Alex? So
Yeah.
what the town did was make a decision that the residents of the town were largely unaware of. And there was one dissenting board member in the town board. He voted in favor of having cannabis dispensaries because he believed that represented the town best. When it was voted down, he came to me, being a libertarian, being a cannabis advocate, having run for state senate, and having political knowledge and know-how and the ability to make sure things are structured so they get done properly. And I helped him draw up the petition for referendum. Now that doesn't sound like a big deal, but in New York it can be pretty tricky. There are a lot of arbitrary rules to how a petition must look, read, be witnessed, dated, the whole 9 yards. And you have to know all that, and you have to draft it properly, or you can get all the signatures you want, and it'll fail. So I gave him a proper petition. I worked with him and some organizers. I assisted him by whipping on social media for the vote. And the town came out and voted on December 14th. They voted 2-1 in favor of allowing cannabis dispensaries.
That's great.
Yep. And I have no idea why a bunch of Republicans would vote against economic growth, but it happens, and it happened here in Guilford. And this gentleman Matt Ratz, a young Republican who's liberty-minded and believes in representation, he brought transparency to the town. He alone, a sole board member, right, in a small little town, just raised his hand and said, hey, this isn't right. He went to the people agreed, and they voted, and we got what we wanted. You can do this too in your own town. You can do this in a large city. You can do this in a small town. You can do this at the county level. All you have to do is run for office, take a local seat, be in the loop to see what's going on. Because, there's a transparency issue, which is called out in our press release. And it's hard to entirely blame the town board because there's also the situation of it. People don't have time to pay attention to everything going on in their town right now. They're worried about their lives. They're worried about being warm in the winter. They're worried about their jobs. They're worried about their children and their children's education. They're worried about COVID-19 and whatever else is going on. They're not paying attention to their town board. What we need to be doing is encouraging people to go to the town board meetings, get involved. That's transparency. That's how you know what's going to be going on. And, they have requirements. They have to publish it in a newspaper. Our town also puts it on a Facebook page that has only a couple of hundred followers. There's 1,700 voters in town, but only a couple of hundred people follow it. I would argue that the people who see it in the paper are even less. It is on the website, but the website looks like a 12-year-old made it in 1993. It's tough to be transparent with limited resources in a small town on a small town board. But it is their duty. It is their duty. Alex is correct. It is the #1 cash crop of the entire country and most states. It's been the #1 cash crop of New York for over 30 years.
Yeah, you're such a good example, Tom. And I just, even for those that, may not see cannabis as a good thing and this and that, which we have different views on that. Not, we don't, but, several people might. But it's the point that you are able to see an injustice through non-transparency, and all it did was just make it go through your petition process and referendum, get up your signatures, and boom, 2-1. It's not like it wasn't the locals that weren't for it. It was as if they just didn't bring it up. They didn't publish it.
Well, the locals weren't aware until we were passing that petition. That's the thing. The town does everything that's legally required, and they don't do a whole lot more. I don't know whether or not we can blame them for that or not. But Matt does more. He did the extra step. He made people aware of what happened. He made people aware of the process to overturn it. And he found the resources. I was one of those resources to make sure it got done. And we got twice the required petition signatures. And again, it passed 2-1. But here's the thing. This is not about cannabis, right? It sounds like it is. It's cannabis, 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 cannabis. The background is cannabis leaves. The bill says cannabis. It's about allowing cannabis dispensaries. Well, cannabis is going to be legal no matter what. There is no choice about that right now. The state has determined that cannabis is legal. There's no stopping us from having it. So why a fiscally conservative Republican town board would vote against utilizing a new market that's shown growth in other states, that's shown to improve the economy in other states, I don't know. I don't get it. But, we called it out. We spoke up. We told them that this is not what we wanted. And by pure, simple vote, the individual people of the town got what they wanted. And that's the way our democracy is supposed to work, is that we're supposed to elect representatives who represent, match represented. I can't say so much about the others. And when we don't feel like we're represented, we have the option to overturn. And there's a couple ways to do this. One is a referendum like this. This was a permissive referendum that was allowed. You do have to look into the details for referendums. They're different for different things. But the other way, remember earlier I was telling everybody to run for office, run for local office, run for your town board. I'm a libertarian. I want you to be a libertarian and run for local office. But you know what? I don't care if you do it as a Democrat or a Republican or a Green Party or a Flying Spaghetti Monster Party. All I care about is that you run.
This is a great example of how one or two people can make a huge difference in a local scale, but also on the national news. The same thing is happening where one person stops everything, and it's a good thing. So,
yeah, exactly.
One person getting involved sometimes can move mountains.
And you know what? Our vice presidential candidate for our party last cycle, what does he tell everybody? I know the three of us know. He tells everybody, you are the power. You are the power because you have the vote. You have the power because you can do the thing. You can start the nonprofit. You can help your neighbor. You can start a business. You can vote. You are the power. And I add to that, not only are you the power, but you are the solution. And that's what happened here. We took our power. We said, this is ours. We are the voting residents of Guilford. And we took our power and we decided to be the solution, which is what I like to add to that. When Spike says you are the power, I say you are the solution. You can build your economy. You can run for office. You can vote out people who don't represent you. You can do the thing that's in front of you, the thing that will help, the thing you know you can do. That's the thing to do. And I bet you if you really looked into it, running for local office would be the thing you could do much more than you might think.
Yeah, I was really surprised with that too. And I liked how, you're running for Senate and you don't have the Senate seat right now, but yet you were able to, just somebody reaching out to you, you were able to, get noticed and put it up there and do it. And I really think a lot of people don't realize that. Some people think, like I used to think, I'd have to actually talk to the governor of Alaska to really get anything done. But there's more options than that.
Yeah, actually, you'd be very lucky to actually get to talk to the governor.
Exactly.
But you're very much more likely to be able to talk to the members of your town board. You're very much more likely to talk to them because you can go to the meetings. They're accessible. They're right there. And you vote on them. They're likely your neighbors. They're in your same social circles. And when we think about this country, for the people, by the people, that's what they mean. We're supposed to know our representatives. We're supposed to know who's representing us and who's making those decisions. And in a town board, that's much more easy particularly with a small town like Guilford, my town supervisor was my history teacher. Matt Ratz is roughly my age. I've known who he was for a long time. And you'll find that if you decide to run for a local office, that a lot of the people who are there, they don't really want the job they have. They don't like it. Sometimes they won't even know how to do it. There'll be yes men that go along, and it'll be very easy to unseat them. A lot of them won't even try if you run against them. You can take the piece, you can take the seat, you can take the position, you can be that voice. But I want to, I did say that this particular instance was not really so much about cannabis as it was the economy. It's revenue to the town, that's jobs, that's money for the people. That's keeping it local too, right? Because this wasn't stopping anyone from farming cannabis. You could still grow cannabis for recreational sales. You just couldn't sell it in town. That doesn't even make sense. And we know for a fact there are at least a couple people looking at investing in cannabis farming and dispensing right here in town, keeping it local because they are locals and they care about their town. Now, aside from the economic impact, cannabis has been shown to have significant medicinal value. And we're thinking recreational cannabis, medicinal cannabis, recreational cannabis, medicinal cannabis. What's the difference? Not much, really, if any. So that means if we have a recreational dispensary in town, everyone in town no longer has to drive an hour to get their recreation or to get their medicinal cannabis. Not only that, but to get medicinal cannabis, you have to have frequent doctor's appointments that are arbitrary and often useless. But that's what verifies that you need medicinal cannabis. Well, guess what that is? That's a cost on the system.
I'm not sure if you can answer this question or not.
I don't know what Alice is talking about. She'll have to give me a call or send me a message. I know Alice. She's good people. So imagine that, right? Medicine that's not draining the healthcare system, which is overburdened. We saw that through 2020, right? Regardless of what you think of COVID, the hospitals were not able to keep up with everything, partly due to arbitrary regulation themselves, but also partly due to the fact that they're overstrained. Even before COVID, it was hard to get an appointment in a timely manner, often enough. And then we see the cost of it. That comes down to our property taxes here in New York. If cannabis takes a fraction of a percentage of cost off the healthcare system, then go for it. Do it.
Yeah, it makes you question motives, and I sit here, I'm thinking, I'm not talking too much because there's just so much I'm thinking about as you talk about this. It's like, especially with this pandemic, I mean, there's so many things that have happened and passed and pushed through, and the locals, the community, the citizens have no idea what's going on. Yeah. And so
that's why you need to get involved at the local level. That's how you find out. Cannabis is an interesting plant. It can be used to revitalize farmland. It can be used to make rope. It can be used to make boards. When lumber skyrocketed, I was talking to a cabinet maker out of northern Pennsylvania who switched to hemp board. Hemp board. He's making his cabinets out of hemp. You know what happened to his prices through the whole shenanigans of lumber skyrocketing? Nothing. His prices stayed the same because he switched to hemp board. That's another problem we have in New York. We've legalized commercial hemp, but we made it difficult to actually do and get through and get processed. A lot of it sat around, went to waste. because they didn't allow the infrastructure for industrial manufacturing, processing. We weren't making products with it. We weren't able to because they got in the way. Get the government out of the way. Let's make some hemp board. Yes,
Biodegradable.
Alex is absolutely correct. Biodegradable plastics. You can make building products. You can make insulation. You can make paper.
Hempcrete.
You can make concrete. It's a very versatile, very viable product in so many ways. There are very few things that have that many applications. Ken, I know you're a cannabis enthusiast.
I am. So is my cat. You can
Oh.
find plenty of CBD stuff for cats. There's
That's a cat.
actually a radio commercial for a CBD store down here in Florida. I'm in Florida on vacation, by the way. And they have a CBD product for weight loss. So I'm looking forward to giving that a try. But yeah, it's a miracle plant. You can do anything with it. And yeah, my use when I started, it maybe wasn't necessarily medical in nature that I was aware of, but it certainly has medical benefits. And I'm certainly a undocumented medical user. In Illinois, the situation is basically you pay a lot of money up front to see the doctor and get the card, but then you have lower prices. So it's basically like joining Sam's Club. But the prices, when all the taxes and everything are in there, even with the medical, lower taxes, it's still taxed. So it doesn't compete with the black market at all, and it never will.
CBD, the reason that can help with weight loss is if you're a stress eater. If stress is causing you to overeat or to turn to junk food, then CBD will calm you down and maybe you won't so much. I've seen it happen. I've met people who've lost a couple of 100 pounds using cannabis.
Wow. Goes against the conventional wisdom, as they would say, or goes against the stereotypes of the pot belly.
Well, you do have to use it appropriately for weight loss in order to lose weight.
That's right.
There's different cultivars. See, that's the other thing that a dispensary brings is knowledge. They are selling a product, and when you sell a product, you inform the customer about your product. And what we've lacked with cannabis being illegal is that institutional or that almost elders-based knowledge of cannabis. We have it with alcohol, right? We're more than avid and willing to teach a 21-year-old how to drink that first night, right? But we don't have it with cannabis. And if we had it with cannabis, and you can find these groups of people who've been doing this since before it was legal anywhere. They largely operate out of places like California, Colorado, and Maine, and other places where it's legal. But they are forming large groups of people that include scientists, doctors, and patients, and they're sharing information. They're sharing what they know about how to be specific with cannabis, how to be specific with the cultivars you're using, and how to make sure you're treating your own ailment and not something else. And in a black market, when cannabis is illegal, or even a gray market where it's not dispensed through a business, a legitimate business, you don't have that guarantee. You don't know what you're getting. And it's very, very hard to use cannabis as medicine if you don't know what cultivar it is, if you don't know what terpenes it has, if you don't know its levels of THC and CBD, if you don't know its generally accepted effects, whether it stimulates you or makes you drowsy. If you don't know these things, it's hard to use cannabis medicinally.
I just want to shout, Osama is a really good friend. He's amazing. He came on my live show once, and he's just got a huge heart and big smile. He just does amazing things. I just don't want to pass him up. Thank you for coming, Osama. They're showing a bunch of love to each other in the comments, so that's good. Thanks, guys.
Welcome, Osama. Recreational cannabis dispensaries are great opportunity to teach people lost knowledge.
There always seems to be something else, and like there's got to be some other reason why we weren't allowed to have this information, or seems like we were almost kind of lied to about the benefits of cannabis for so many years. I know it's kind of a can of worms to get into, but it's got to be
that is a big can of worms. It actually started with the Mexican Revolution. There was fear-mongering political propaganda going on here, trying to tell us to be afraid of the Mexicans because they were fighting for their own freedom. And gosh, we wouldn't want that here, not in the land of the free. So that's where the term marijuana comes from. It's actually not a word. It's government. It's slang. It's government slang. Cannabis is the appropriate word. Both what you would use for medicine and hemp are cannabis. And the differentiation between the two is arbitrary and incorrect. Now, the U.S. government illegalized cannabis for a couple of reasons. One of it was to make us hate the Mexicans, because that's what we need to do. We need to hate people. That's the only way we survive, is if we find other people to hate. Right, Ken?
It's how they distract us and keep us ignorant to the point there, to a 2-to-1 margin, the people want one thing and the city votes another way.
Yeah.
It's not even a surprise that happens. That's just the nature of how government is now.
Right. So what I'm talking about was actually national at the time. So, at the time that they made it illegal, every doctor had it in their bag. Every doctor had cannabis for their patients in their traveling doctor's bag, in their offices, and the government made it illegal. There is some other conjecture about why it was made illegal. Competing crops, big business lobbying. Of course, an alcohol lobby still tries to prevent cannabis being legalized. Pharmaceutical lobbies still try to prevent cannabis from being legalized. And you can just see why. Yes, that's absolutely right, Jacob. One of the main benefits of cannabis is relaxation. And if you have hypertension, if you have PTSD, if you have any symptom, any situation that causes any kind of panic or freak out, if you will, a little bit of the right cannabis can go a long way. I know an awful lot of veterans who use cannabis. You know what? I know a police officer in New York who was distributing cannabis to veterans for their PTSD before it was legalized.
Yeah, Jacob will be on the show on Wednesday. Wednesday. We haven't figured out a time exactly for this Wednesday, but we have a whole couple 3 weeks we'll be doing on PTSD and becoming an entrepreneur and transitioning from military life into society. And yeah, he's an advocate for cannabis apparently.
But there's not a lot of support for veterans when they come out of service. So I'm familiar with, can you remember their name correctly? I just met the guy who's involved with a nonprofit. They do a lot for veterans, and they've got some brick and mortar locations where they have classes and therapy and other things to get them motivated and innovate again for their lives. Find something new. A Clear Path for Veterans. That's what it's called. A Clear Path for Veterans. Check it out. They're expanding. They started in New York. I'm pretty sure they moved out to Massachusetts as well now, and somewhere else. They seem to they're 97% privately funded. 97% private donations. Right? A Clear Path for Veterans.
Cool.
The guy that I met at the state fair last summer, he's a good guy. He cares. He's putting his all into it. But let's get back to the main point. when something happens in your government, particularly your local government, because it's where you have the most control, it's your prerogative, perhaps even your duty, to do something about it. For the people, by the people, you're a person. You have that much power. I want you to take a good look at me. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm disabled. And I helped the guy overturn the town board's ruling. If I can do it, you can do it. You know, I'm going to swing this another way. Robert, you're looking at something local too, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm looking for something local. Where I'm at, it's not quite the same as most places because I'm not in a bureau. I'm not in a municipality. I'm in a free-range homestead community. And all of the decisions that are made in this community don't require a lot of money. Like, we don't have trash removal. We don't have water on the system. So there's a community well here in Kenny Lake. And in order to pay for the services for the well, they charge a certain amount for a key, which gets replaced every year. And so if you go down, everybody in the community that's a landowner or lives in a community can go to the community league meetings and listen to what's going on and make a vote, and their vote is just as equal as anybody else's. But if you don't go, you don't really know what's going on. And so, you know, I have a feeling that the keys have been being distributed, and I'm not really sure if the money's being distributed properly. And so the only thing that I can do, it's not the only thing, but I can go down and sit in at the community league meetings, and I can vote and bring up questions, and they have to address them. And so there's some things that were done that I noticed a lot of the community members didn't realize, you know. So I'm just kind of doing a little personal audit, and I'm going to be going and doing my effort to make sure that everybody that is getting charged this money for those keys is getting what they're promised that the drive is for.
Yeah.
And that's just something I can do.
It sounds like you're looking for misappropriation of funds. They charge you a fee for a reason, which is probably to maintain and test the well. And if that fee is being used for anything else, that's wrong.
Right, that's right. And there's a lot of money, you know. There's like 15 grand, and I can't really find the expenses where they go. And I don't want to talk too much about it because I just haven't done everything. You know, I haven't done my due diligence long enough because I'm just stepping into my activist shoes, my campaigning shoes. I just really want to be able to show by example, like you do, Thomas, and show that, you know, I have a vote. And not only that, but it shows the board that there's people watching, and that alone might get them to, you know, watch what they're doing more protectively.
Oh, absolutely. So you don't even know that there's anything wrong going on, right? At this point. But you're concerned that there might be, and you recognize that you have the ability to look into it. And should you find something, do something about it. That's wonderful. That's what everybody should be doing.
Yeah, and so I try not to worry about, you know, well, what are they going to think? That I have some personal vendetta, or, you know, are they going to alienate me? Or are they going to attack me or something? They're not supposed to do that. This is what we're supposed to do as the community, as the members. If there's a question, go down and talk about it, address it, and vote on it.
Absolutely.
And so I should be getting ridiculed off for it.
But you have every right. As a part of the community, you have every right to do that. And what other people think about you doing that, well, if they think that it's bad, that you're exercising your rights, then obviously they don't want their rights either, do they?
No, I think people just kind of blindly do things. Like if they see you, well, basically, if you don't pay for the key and get it, like it's going to have to be renewed here on the 4th or the 8th of January. And instead of, you know, they're just going to blindly have to pay for another key. And if they can't really complain about it if they don't go down and find out where the money's going. There's been a lot of people that are getting upset about it, and it's causing division in the community, but nobody really knows the facts. And
the same kind of thing happens here. Right? There was another issue that started a couple of years ago. I'm not going to go into what it was, but it was another lack of transparency issue. But at the same time, you know, you're right. It's our responsibility to show up. It's our responsibility to pay attention. It's our responsibility to make sure we're holding their feet to the fire when it's necessary and not when it's not.
Yeah.
You know,
So like
do your
water,
homework.
water, for instance, out here where I'm at in this community, is like the number one essential item that you need to survive out here. We have land, we can subsistence hunt, we can haul wood to stay warm, and so we don't really use the cash very much for anything. We've always been able to, up to just a few years ago, have free water at the well. And then all of a sudden, it's costing all this money to upkeep the well. And so if there's an excess of money, $15,000, then there's other ways that we can use that money properly. I don't think anybody in the community is going to have a problem if we were able to pay salary for somebody for 6 months out of the year to actually deliver water to the house so people don't have to go drive down and get it in the middle of winter. I mean, that sounds like a better appropriation than other items, other things like maybe paving the parking lot, the community hall, And so,
Right.
like I said, I don't know exactly if that money went to there, but I'm just trying to find the expenses. And if there's an excess of funds, where is it going? And if we're getting more money besides what the money that's coming from the key drive, if they're getting money from the government or the state, that's going to concern locals a lot, because the reason we're able to stay out of the borough and stay out of government control and stay independent is because we're not accepting that money and being locked down by the government. When we start accepting money from the big guys, they're going to come in and tell us what to do. And so if there is more money coming in to pay the parking lot of the community hall, people aren't going to be happy with that either. So it's just, it opens up more thoughts.
So at the very least, if there's an overage of money that they're using for something that's not what it's for, they should be
Right.
telling the people. At least telling the people. Maybe everybody wants the community center's parking lot paved. If they're all okay with it, that would be fine. But ultimately, they should have some community participation, some kind of transparency, something where it's discussed, and at least tell people what's going on. And if they can't decide on what to do with the money overage, then perhaps, just perhaps, they should rebate the money.
Yeah, it would be okay. I think that maybe what would help more, and this might help in other countries too, other states too, is post very visibly times a bulletin, a calendar of when the meetings are, and remind people, come be part of the community. You're in a community. This is free range. You are in control of this. It's you. Otherwise you're going to leave it up to these 4 people who maybe they don't even utilize the well. Maybe they have a well themselves. Maybe they don't understand the needs and how very important it is to not have to pay that money for water. Maybe it just
That's look at Guilford here, right? Guilford's a very small town, and it doesn't have a whole lot of public businesses, but the ones that we do have are frequented by most people. How hard would it be to print out a flyer every month saying what's going on, where the meetings are, what's being addressed, and getting these businesses to hang it off? Every one of them has a cork board just for that kind of thing. You could do that at the gas station. You could do that at the restaurants. With 10 pieces of paper, you can inform a lot more people what's going on in the town than you do in the newspaper and on a Facebook page that doesn't get seen.
You know what I thought of just now? What if I or somebody went down and did a live stream of the meetings, since they're open
They
to the
might not
public
like
anyway?
it. They might not like it. You'd have to ask. You'd probably have to ask.
Because it is allowed for everybody in the community. Maybe it's because it might go out of the community that it might not be allowed.
Right, and it's interesting when it comes to putting people on camera, we all have rights about that, including seated board members, unless it's explicitly stated in their bylaws that it should be broadcast. Then each individual should have some choice. I don't know how it works in your town, but it's always best to be polite. And when it comes to putting people on camera,
everybody's allowed to go and sit in the meetings.
Correct.
And so,
Correct.
Right, everybody does,
but legally there is a difference when it comes to putting people on camera. So just lead with kindness and ask. That would be my suggestion.
That's something I could bring up too. I could, say, hey, maybe we could offer some more transparency for people. So if everything is intact and how it's supposed to be, which I'm hoping that it is, the people are supposed to be good people in the community. So if there's a concern in the community, I would think that they would want them to ease their concern. I mean, it is all voluntary. Nobody's getting paid for it. So, you don't want to stress too much.
That's an excellent point. And I know some people from my own town are watching, and maybe some of the town board even are watching. If you really want to ease the people's concerns, if you want to ease the tension that's going on, tell people what's going on. Print out 10 pieces of paper per month of what's going on and what you're talking about at the meetings and what's scheduled to be presided over, and post it physically where people go.
Like you,
And
Thomas,
it seems to work really good for kids selling lemonade. Maybe it'll work for the town board.
well, Thomas, you're so visible, you're so transparent. You're on here every week with me. We're asking you questions. There's perfect transparency. If I was down there at the meeting, and I definitely would be pushing for an option to get my voice out there and get everybody involved. Not only would it, make peace in the community, but it would also get more involvement and maybe even more chance for more funding, more involvement at the community hall, increase the numbers to keep the school going, increase everything for the budget, just by getting people involved.
Robert, there is one thing you can do that they can't stop you, and that you don't have to ask permission. You can attend the meetings, you can take notes, and you can write a newsletter about what happens at the meetings. And then that can go out via email, or you can print them and mail them to your fellow community members. You can become the reporter, and anybody can do that.
Here in my county, we have a blogger who does that. One of the people in the county clerk's office.
And people get paid. The newspaper offers the paid position, every month to. They're looking for column writers. They're looking for advertising matters that are local to this area.
Right, and every area has its own issues, and every area needs somebody paying attention and telling people what's going on. Every area needs somebody like Matt Ratz on the town board. Every area needs somebody like Robert going to the meetings and figuring out what's going on and letting other people know. Every area needs a Tom Queter who's willing to put himself out there and be the loudmouth and talk about it and take the heat. Somebody needs to do these things. And if you're in your town, if you're in your community out there watching this, if you're watching this, you exist in a place, and that place has a government that you can get involved in. And I am encouraging you to get involved in it. Stop complaining about the government. Stop. Get involved. Do it. Become the government. For the people, by the people. You're the power. You're the solution. And on that note, Bob, Robert, Ken, our time is just about up for me. Is there anything else you guys want to say before we go off, other than tomfor52.com? That's TOMFOR52.com. Consider making a donation, but more importantly, consider getting involved in your local government.
Be a precinct committeeman. I would love to have known about more about civics when I was in high school and college. I went to an awful lot of college and did not learn anything about civics, and I didn't know what a precinct committeeman was until I became one. So I highly recommend that anybody watching look into being a precinct committeeman for the Libertarians.
Yeah, so I just want to say, I'm glad I'm here, Thomas, and you're such an inspiration. I encourage people to keep their economy local as much as possible. At first, so that you can keep an eye on the numbers, and just I think that the power is the people, right? So try to be that power.
Thank you, Robert, again for running these lives. I really appreciate it. And Ken, thank you for showing up.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on with you guys.
Merry Christmas.
Happy cannabis.
And this thing.